Today we're talking about one of the most progressive minds in astrology. Hello my beautiful lotus flowers, welcome back or welcome to my channel. If you're into nerding out on everything astrology, spirituality, and self-transformation, this is the community for you. Today we're talking all about having Mercury in Aquarius, and what this means is at the exact time you were born, the planet Mercury was moving through the zodiac sign of Aquarius at the time of your birth. And if you're not quite sure what the energy of Mercury holds in astrology, then I will have a pre-recorded clip before the actual video begins telling you a brief summary about the energy of Mercury so you can better understand that before watching the rest of the video. Then we'll continue to talk about the general traits of somebody who has this placement, and we'll finish off the video with a couple empowering tips if you have this placement or if you know somebody who does, because I don't just want to tell you like, oh, you're this way and you're that way and then leave you to it. I want to actually offer some advice and offer a little bit of my 2 cents when it comes to somebody who has this placement. So be sure you're staying tuned to watch that. For a brief introduction to the planet Mercury, in case you're not familiar with it. Mercury is considered the quote-unquote messenger planet in astrology, ruling over thought, communication, how information is mentally processed, our intellect, routines, and our mental instincts. Mercury is actually the ruler of 2 zodiac signs, both Gemini and Virgo. Gemini is an air sign and Virgo is an earth sign. Wherever Mercury is at in your natal chart will tell you how you express yourself in regards to what Mercury rules over, such as how you communicate, how you think, etc. But it is very important to pay attention to whether Mercury was retrograde at the time you were born, as this can definitely alter how you express your Mercury placement. And the way that you identify that is there will be a little RX symbol next to your planet. If you're looking at a birth chart that provides this information, you'll see a little retrograde symbol next to this planet symbol, and that will tell you if it was retrograde at the time you were born. This can manifest for so many different ways for so many different people, so I won't be talking about if the planet is retrograde, but a lot of times the traits I talk about, a lot of opposite traits can manifest for this person. Like for example, say the Mercury placement usually makes the person really good at communication. Well, if it's retrograde, then there's potential that maybe you struggle a lot with communication instead. So keep that in mind. Now for the general traits of somebody who has Mercury in Aquarius. First, it's important to remember that Aquarius is the fixed air sign ruled by Uranus, co-ruled by Saturn, and symbolized by the water bearer. Number 1, people with Mercury in Aquarius are some of the most, if not the most, unique and progressive thinkers in astrology. Again, Aquarius's modern ruler is Uranus, and its traditional ruler is Saturn. If you don't know, Uranus governs innovation, originality, and social reform, whereas Saturn tends to govern tradition, structure, and discipline. With Mercury being in Aquarius, there's automatically a synergy between the energy of Mercury and the energy of Uranus, creating an individual with an extremely innovative mind full of ideas, opinions, and visions that are far ahead of their time, that many people might actually see as ridiculous or unrealistic, when in fact, the Aquarius Mercury is practically predicting the future. Not only is their mind extremely innovative, but it's not unlike someone with this placement to have a kind of unusual taste in the subjects that interest them. You know, maybe this is the type of person that is really into like astrology and metaphysics and stuff like that, or perhaps they're into studying mythical creatures. Mythical creatures fascinate them, and they might even believe in some of the mythical creatures. It's just not unlike them to really love studying and researching these subjects that are kind of considered odd by the majority of people, I suppose. But in addition to having kind of an innovative, maybe unusual mindset, they still have the energy of Saturn present, and it may seem kind of odd that they're co-ruled by Saturn and traditionally ruled by Saturn, But the way that this comes into play for a Mercury in Aquarius is that they will often question structures and traditions. They're not the type to just accept something as it is, especially if it's considered the norm. They enjoy questioning it. They enjoy seeing if there's other ways that things could work, or better ways that things could work that are already set up in society. And this is where their kind of futuristic thinking can come from, because, you know, they might see somebody doing something that is considered normal, but they might tell somebody in conversation like, yeah, I don't understand why we do that. Haven't we ever thought that doing it this way would be more effective, more efficient? And everybody around them is like,
oh, yeah, like that's not gonna happen.
You know, but then 10 years down the line, it does happen, something like that. And so Saturn, you know, often deals with society structures and traditions, and a Mercury in Aquarius may, you know, conform to these traditions at some point in their life. It's not saying that they won't, but it won't go without them questioning it. Number 2, although they're often such forward thinkers, they can have a stubborn streak in regards to their own eccentric ideals, sometimes dismissing those they deem to be less conscious than them in some way. Since Aquarius is a fixed sign, this means that there can be a stubborn yet deeply committed nature to them. And with Mercury in Aquarius, this fixed nature becomes apparent in the way that they think and process the world around them. It's true that many individuals with this placement have genius-like minds that tend to think from a much higher level of education or consciousness, but it's also because of this that if someone challenges their ideals, proves them wrong, or doesn't seem to understand them, they can be quick to dismiss that person and conclude that they're automatically above them. This trait, combined with Saturn's energy, can actually make this person sometimes a bit uptight or tense when it comes to their ideals, or when it comes to their beliefs, etc. Just anything that they kind of feel confident or powerful about, they might actually become overly attached to a certain ideal or vision that they have, thinking that it is the best way. And this may seem kind of paradoxical, considering that there's such a forward thinker and a progressive mind. And it's not to say that they're stuck in one way of thinking, but it's just that they tend to think that their thinking can be the best way. And if they meet somebody who they respect and they consider somebody who is on their level of intelligence, I suppose you could say, if they meet somebody that they give the same respect that they give to themselves, then they might be willing to listen to them. But if they meet somebody that they are judging as not as smart as them or not as progressive thinking as them, they can sometimes be dismissive of that person's ideas or thoughts. And this just comes from, again, that fixed nature. Of course, the fixed nature is not all bad. This is also what makes them committed to certain ideals, no matter what other people think. Some other people, they might have unique ideas, but they'll never live them out, or they'll never speak about them because they're scared of what people might think. When it comes to Mercury and Aquarius, they take pride in their kind of outward ideals, their eccentric ideals, if you will, and they'll happily stand by them if they believe in them. They take, again, pride in it. So this is where the fixed nature is definitely a positive thing as well. Third, their ability to be emotionally and mentally detached from situations allows them to not only view and comprehend many different perspectives, but to take a rational approach to various situations as well. This tends to be generally a beneficial trait of having Mercury placed in any of the 3 air signs. For Mercury in Aquarius specifically, this person already tends to be an extremely open-minded person that doesn't need to conform to normal thought. So they're often willing and open to hear everyone's own experience and opinion, giving them the ability to bridge the gap between many different types of people and situations, often forming their own non-biased viewpoint because of this. This is truly one of the beautiful things about having Mercury in an air sign, but especially Mercury in Aquarius. They really embrace the idea that everybody is different, they come from different backgrounds, and because this is a very intellectual placement to have, this is one of the things that will inspire them to learn. They will probably want to study or want to research certain subjects that help them learn about different people and why people are the way they are. This might even be like some type of psychology or sociology major. It wouldn't be a surprise if they were. But they do love being able to talk and learn from, to speak to and learn from different people from different backgrounds, very, very different from their own background. And they're usually non-judgmental because of this. They really just want to learn and they want to understand other people who they consider very different from themselves. If you're enjoying this video so far, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a comment down below if you have Mercury in Aquarius or if you know somebody who does. Or just comment your Mercury sign down below. I love to know who's watching. And if you're into getting in-depth astrological readings weekly, then you can head over to my Patreon because that's where I release them. Number 4, this person is often thinking about the bigger picture and how they can contribute to the world in some way. The symbol of Aquarius, the water bearer, is meant to represent how Aquarians are seen as the sign that contributes to growing and progressing life through sharing their own contributions with the world, such as knowledge, wisdom, etc. For this placement, this shows itself most in the perspective they tend to have of the world. Oftentimes, they are thinking about how something might pan out in the long term or in the grand scheme of things, feeling like many people tend to only think in terms of immediate gratification. It's not unlike somebody with this placement to have quite a wise mentality. They definitely think about things in a broader sense. They don't think about immediate gratification as much as the next person. And so it's because of this that they can tend to hold a lot of wisdom naturally that a lot of people may not think of themselves. So someone with this placement might even become some type of activist, mentor, guru, etc. So that way they can spread this knowledge that they have and this wisdom with people. And this is the way that Mercury in Aquarius follows the sign of the water bearer as a symbol. They really want to speak their knowledge, spread their message with people in hopes that it can improve the world in some way or improve society in some way. In fact, a great modern example of someone we all know that has this placement is Oprah Winfrey herself. Widely known as a woman who's highly intelligent, wise, and forward-thinking.
You will find true success and happiness if you have only one goal. There really is only one, and that is this: to fulfill the highest, most truthful expression of yourself as a human being. You want to max out your humanity by using your energy to lift yourself up, your family, and the people around you. The single most important lesson I learned in 25 years talking every single day to people was that there's a common denominator in our human experience. We want to be validated. We want to be understood. I've done over 35,000 interviews in my career. And as soon as that camera shuts off, everyone always turns to me and inevitably in their own way asks this question: was that okay? I heard it from President Bush. I heard it from President Obama. I've heard it from heroes and from housewives. I've heard it from victims and perpetrators of crimes. I even heard it from Beyonce and all of her Beyonce-ness. Friends and family, yours, enemies, strangers, in every argument, in every encounter, every exchange, I will tell you, they all want to know one thing: was that okay? Did you hear me? Do you see me? Did what I say mean anything to you?
It isn't a surprise that she decided to create her own talk show in which she speaks to various individuals about their own perspectives, experiences, and opinions. A quote I found from interviews.televisionacademy.com says, "Winfrey used the show as a platform to teach and inspire, providing viewers with a positive, spiritually uplifting experience by featuring book clubs, compelling interviews, self-improvement segments, and philanthropic forays into world events." Everything about that quote perfectly sums up the way Mercury in Aquarius may display the water bearer trait. Now, I'm not saying that everybody with this placement is going to be this way. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of variation in the way that you decide to carry out this trait into the world, but I'm just saying it's not unlike somebody who has this trait to do what Oprah Winfrey did or something similar. Now for some empowering tips for somebody with Mercury in Aquarius. Number 1, it's important for this placement to not only foster a healthy sense of self-love, but to ensure that they're nurturing their personal relationships as well. It isn't unlike somebody with this placement to feel extremely detached from everyone, whether it's because they feel like nobody can understand them, or whether it's because they just flat out feel like they're better than people and they really don't like humanity as a whole. These can both be very true for somebody with this placement. I mean, the blunt truth about this placement is that sometimes they can hold kind of a mental arrogance about themselves and really end up detaching and distancing themselves from other people because of that. They might think that they are, more intelligent than other people, or again, they just feel like nobody's going to understand them. Whatever the reason is for their detachment, this can lead to them unintentionally pushing away people that they are actually close to and that they do actually care about. It can tend to slip the mind of a Mercury in Aquarius that they need to actively reach out to people they care about as well. Because when we're dealing with Aquarius placements in general, we tend to get to a place where we're getting to like a very wise, higher consciousness in the zodiac wheel. Aquarius and Pisces deal a lot with higher consciousness, with higher thinking, and not in the same way that Jupiter does. So don't get that confused. This is where we're actually crossing over into like more spiritual realms, more just higher consciousness. I don't know how else to explain it. So this can cause a lot of Aquarians and Pisceans to naturally just detach themselves from the human experience in different ways. When it comes to Mercury in Aquarius, this can bleed into, the way that they communicate with other people, whether they actually reach out to people, whether they actually want to bridge connections and make connections with people. They can sometimes dissociate themselves because they just feel like it's pointless to talk to anybody. It's pointless to even try to make a difference. And this is definitely true if there's a heavier Saturn influence in this person's chart, because Saturn can sometimes bring about an air of pessimism and doubt, because Saturn tends to be more of a rigid planet. So if there is more Saturn present for you in your chart and you have this placement, then you may experience thinking a lot of negative, pessimistic thoughts about the world, about yourself, about people around you, etc. This leads me into mentioning why I also said you need to foster self-love, because this, again, doubtful, pessimistic thought process that can sometimes bleed over from Saturn energy can make you speak to yourself very harshly. And maybe this is the reason that you're detaching from people, because you're not too confident in yourself for whatever reason. You can be a complete genius, so intelligent, such an innovator, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're confident or you're speaking to yourself nicely. You actually may not even take pride in the way that you think. You may think that maybe you're kind of weird, or like you wish you could just fit in with people for once, but you just don't know how to do that, and it can frustrate you to no end. But at the end of the day, if you have this placement, then the matter of the fact is you probably still enjoy having deep, meaningful, intellectual conversations with people that you care about. This is the way that you create connections to people, is intellectual, enticing conversations that you enjoy. And in the end, Aquarius is a lot about human connection. Again, we're going back to the symbol of the water bearer. So if you're making no human connection whatsoever, you're going to feel depleted. There's going to be part of you that feels unfulfilled for some reason, or lonely maybe. Overall, if you have this placement, staying aware of how you nourish yourself and nourish your outward relationships is going to be very important. And again, you may not realize that you've been neglecting them. So be sure you become aware of that and figure out a way to begin nurturing the relationship with yourself and the relationship with people that you care about. Number 2, rest is absolutely vital for these individuals, especially mental rest. Other placements will also heavily affect this, but people with Aquarius Mercury can also have issues with muscle tension, headaches, and possibly even issues related to the nervous system. This is something that can show itself in other Mercury air signs as well, but for Mercury and Aquarius, there can be a lot of pressure placed on themselves by their own thought process. Whether it's because they're highly ambitious about their ideals, whether they stress themselves out because they wish others thought the way that they do, whether it's because they place a lot of pressure on themselves in general. Think of it as their brain going to the gym 7 days a week with no rest to do extreme Olympic heavy lifting every single time. And they never give themselves a break to go easier on themselves. They never give themselves time off. The issue here is that sometimes people with this placement have a mind that's just too expansive and too active for its own good. Meaning that, you know, a lot of people don't know this, but using our brain takes a lot of energy every day. Even if you don't do anything physically active, your brain is still using calories to think, to process stuff, to figure out problems all throughout the entire day. You're always using your brain. And for someone with this placement, since we're dealing with the mind and the mental process with Mercury, then you're gonna have like this very expansive thought process that seems to never end. Like your brain will always be thinking about all these possibilities, all these, what if we do this? What if we do that? And it's kind of hard to put into words the type of thought processes that would go through this brain. But the overall moral of the story here is that picking up practices that slow your brain down and allow you to take frequent mental rest is going to be very important. And something that could really benefit this placement hugely is meditation, because meditation is meant to help relax the nervous system, relax the mental process, relax the brain, and give it a breather for once. Not only that, but it's also going to help keep your nervous system from reacting to all the things that your brain is thinking of all the time. It's going to help you learn how to slow down and regulate the body's nervous system again, so you don't end up getting anxiety or feeling extreme muscle tension or suffering from headaches like you might. Not only meditation, it could be really beneficial for anyone with this placement to look into ways to decrease brain inflammation. We may not realize it, but through our diet and through our daily routines, we may be doing various things that inflame the brain further, which can lead to headaches and all these other issues. So it would be beneficial for you to look into ways to decrease brain inflammation through your diet and through your daily routine. Again, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos like this one, or if you want to see more like this one. And you can also leave a comment down below telling me whatever your Mercury sign is, because I want to know who's watching. And head over to Patreon to get in-depth astrological readings every single week and more. And you can also head over to the LaBlue Lotus Facebook community, where we talk more about using astrology and spirituality for self-transformation. But if you want a more personal side of my journey, you can head over to my Instagram at Marisa LaBlue, and you can watch these videos if you haven't already until I release a new one. They'll help you so much more on your astrological and spiritual journey. Until I see you next time, thank you so much again for being here. Adios.